So you can create a cryptocurrency where you can validate that if some people work harder than others, they can actually be rewarded, not only in cash or in the traditional ways of paying a salary, but also in crypto that is mined at the farm, but that is growing in value because the farm and the internal economy of the farm can also trade in crypto, removing the need for trading everything in cash, and therefore removing the need for taxation, essentially, in some way, shape, or form. Welcome to the Superhero Academy podcast. I'm your host, Marc Angelo. Hello, superheroes. I'm Marc Angelo Coppola, and welcome to the Superhero Academy podcast, where my mission is simple: to make you a better storyteller. Apparently, I fuck up every once in a while, but that's okay. So whether you're an entrepreneur, creative, or influencer, this show is designed to help mentor you around the nuances of storytelling, identify and capitalize on trends to grow your presence and not suffer from the 21st century plight of the digital cricket. Oh, you hear those crickets and frogs. And introduce you to incredible superheroes so you can create waves with your own stories and brand online. End of the day, I'm a geeky attention broker looking to teach and learn while making you laugh and sharing my take on the headlines and developments of this crazy, crazy world. So text me at the number below or DM me at Marc Angelo Coppola on whatever platform you want to choose. I mean, realistically, I'm on all of them. And ladies and gentlemen, you know where the links are. If I'm mentioning any links in the show, you know where they are. They're down below. They're in the description. Depending on where you're watching this, they're somewhere in my profile or something like that. Today, we are going to be talking about something that's kind of a follow-up to an episode that I did, not last episode, but the episode before that, which is all about Valhalla farms. So here's the truth. That episode, I talk about the history of Valhalla, kind of the financial implications of Valhalla, how and why I see investing in a farm, investing in the farm here outside of Montreal. If you don't know what I'm talking about, by the way, Valhalla is a farm that I run with a bunch of other amazing humans. We're building a community of 150 people. Our goal is to turn it into a functional eco-village. So I'm going to get into that. But what I really want to focus on, and at the end of that, I talk about membership. That episode, I talk about the history of Valhalla, 5 reasons why I'm invested in the farm, and kind of where we're going with membership this year and kind of maybe into next year. Now, here's the truth. I want to talk about the future of Valhalla and how the future of Valhalla needs to scale in a very different way, and whether or not we should be looking to integrate crypto and blockchain. Now, I'm saying this because I truly believe that there's an opportunity for us to innovate not only in what we're doing on the farm, planting fruit trees and building community, all the farm table dinners that we're going to do for our private members, building up essentially a private club for everything that we're building and creating. The other half of what I want to talk about is how we can incorporate technology and different vehicles of finance to kind of create a distributed system for sharing responsibility, for allowing others to invest in the farm, and finding unique ways that people like you, right, whether you're in Montreal or abroad, can actually participate in Valhalla in a bigger way. And so I'm going to go into this. Now, here's the truth. This is the first time I ever publicly speak about this story. I've seeded elements of it literally earlier this week, where I started to talk about little pieces of this, but I'm a storyteller. And what that means is the story of Valhalla, when people come to the farm or the story I told you on that last episode, a lot of that story is something I've worked out and spoken many times over. It's rehearsed, so to speak. Now, it's different every time. I always bring in different context. I kind of, if I'm giving a tour at the land, I tend to bring in things that are contextual or relevant to the person who I'm speaking to or to the group that I'm speaking to. And I try and make references to individual people. But this storyline is a little bit different. It's a storyline I haven't tested. And normally I would sit down and write it out. Normally I would try and kind of work this out a little bit more publicly or in smaller groups and test and kind of get feedback in the same way that a comedian would go to a comedy club and test material before they record their special. So last episode I did on Valhalla was my special. It's kind of, here's my pitch. Here's everything I need to say. Here are all the different layers. It goes into the depth of that. The pitch, I don't always take an hour and a half or whatever it is that I took to explain it. but it's the kind of long format version of that story that I've rehearsed over the last 9 years. This story, the story of the future of Valhalla, is a rough idea. It's kind of the rough draft. And for me, it's really exciting because I get to, well, basically record the first time I ever tell it. So the things that I'm saying in this story, number one, aren't rehearsed, but they are thought out. It's something that I've been thinking about. These ideas or these storylines have been kind of culminating or, ruminating in my mind for some time now, but it's the first time I'm speaking it. And for me as a storyteller, and you know that if you're watching this podcast, a lot of the content that I create is about building a brand online, telling stories, building a career as an entrepreneur, influencer, creator, whatever it is. I love the idea that I'm going to be able to share this story with you and then be able to reflect back in a year's time or 6 months or in 10 years and say, oh, did we actually end up executing this? Is this part of the path and the journey that we're taking? So I want you to take what I'm saying with a grain of salt because I'm inventing it as we go. I have these ideas. These ideas have been relevant to me for some time. And the adoption of crypto and blockchain as a function of Valhalla is building on the existing co-op structure that we now have. So if you don't understand what a co-op is, it's a legal structure where it's one member, one vote. It allows people to have ownership of the farm business at least, and therefore ownership of the revenues of the farm if the farm and the group that runs the farm, including me, tend to choose to give out those revenues. Now, I have said this many times, our farm is not at this point designed just to sell food. Yes, we sell eggs. Yes, we grow garlic. Yes, we are a traditional farm in that way, but we also are really focused on building community. And what community means to me is that our financial model and our kind of raison d'etre, that's French for our reason of existence, or our mission or vision, is about growing a 150-person community, hosting events, hosting retreats, hosting all kinds of gatherings of all different types to bring in what I would consider to be a village. Because the core premise is that it takes a village to build a village. So how do you build the village and build the functions of the village and the way that they assemble and the way that they start to co-create and the way that they start to co-invest or collaborate, essentially? How do you do that in a way that enables what we call freedom culture, which is to empower and encourage all individuals to spread their unique gifts to the world? So we say all individuals because we mean you too, right? We're making this content to inspire you, to hopefully have you, learn about what it takes to turn your passions into profit, or to take what you're passionate about and love to do, what your superpowers are, as I like to say, into your career. Now, we're doing that online, but physically, we're doing that by building community and building communal infrastructure. So our goal at this moment is to build that infrastructure and to start to lay down the foundation of membership. So in the last episode, just to recap, I talk about membership and I talk about these 3 tiers of members: workers, producers, and supporters. Workers are people who work at the farm and get paid from the farm directly like a traditional worker. A producer is somebody who has an entrepreneurial spirit or a talent that they want to use the farm, the land, or the venue that is the farm as a vehicle for growing their own business. And supporters are people who love the project and want to be a part of it, want to be invited, want to have exclusive opportunities to join in specific events, want to be able to come to farm table dinners, because we're not planning on running a restaurant so much as we're planning on running a community where we host private gatherings that are members only. So that's great, but that's very traditional, right? Buying a membership, for example, to a gym or to a spa has its benefits, just like you would exchange time, energy, money, whatever resource for laid out benefits. And that's the membership that I spoke about last time, right? You do this, we do that. This is where we're going. This is our vision. Are you in or are you interested? But here's the thing. That leads to pain points for me. So in this, I'm going to talk about how membership isn't enough and what is holding us back, my personal pain points and how that's holding us back as well. I'm going to talk about NFTs and how I see that and potentially crypto playing a big role. And then I'm going to talk about how I believe we can accelerate the project through crowdfunding or crowdsourcing, if that makes sense, or crowd investing, but not in the way that you think about when it comes to Kickstarter, but more so in the way of literally raising capital without necessarily doing that from one or two big investors are going to hold, that could hold an anvil over your head, right? Because at the end of the day, many companies or organizations scale through saying, hey, we have this potential. You see this potential. If you invest now, you can make a return, and these are the returns that we can guarantee you. This is the way that we can do that. That's great for the people with money, but it doesn't attract what we really need, which is the people with talent. See, I'm not looking only for the people with money. I'm actually looking for the people with talent to build the eco-village or to build a farm to begin with. I mean, who is going to go and tend to the gardens and pick the garlic and clean it up and dry it out and sell it at the market? Who is going to be the carpenter or the electrician? Who is going to do the accounting or the bookkeeping? Whatever that looks like, we want to attract those people and have them have a sense of ownership. And so that segments directly into the first key piece that I want to talk about here, which is the pain points of our farm. Now, I can talk about the pain points of a physical reality of our farm, right? We only this year got power that's connected to the grid. I mean, we have solar panels, we still have to install them. We need finances to do a bunch of different things. We have and experience droughts from time to time. We don't have a big, giant irrigation system at the moment. So we have to hand water a lot of things. We're doing a lot of the work by hand. We're not really using machinery or tilling or tractors a ton. We do to some degree, but we don't have a ton of equipment necessarily. And a lot of that is solving itself. Now, a lot of that is solving itself through the fact that people are showing up Fridays and Saturdays and other days of the week, but Fridays and Saturdays are kind of our more public days, as volunteers to participate in that. And then there are some people who really do see themselves as kind of permanent members. They've taken responsibility. So that's a key word that I want to talk about, responsibility. Here's my pain point. A lot of people come to the farm and they say, oh, wow, this is really great. You guys want to build a community. You have 88 acres outside of Montreal. You want to transform it in this way, but you're the owner of the farm. And so what they do is that they attribute ownership to decision-making. They attribute the way that the farm functions in the same way that they would attribute the way the farm functions or the normal business functions, which is that the owners make all the decisions and basically have all the power and all the control. Now, that to some degree is true. What I mean by that is there's always some power that's left with the people who can kind of pull the plug at any point. And I can acknowledge that you might believe, and without knowing me, that that's the case. But if you really know me, and if you've really spent enough time at the farm, what you actually understand is that my goal is to remove the bottleneck of me and the need for me to make decisions and validate other people's decisions, but instead allow that to distribute so that people can have ownership, true ownership of the success of the farm and true ability and power to exert that power on the farm itself without needing my validation, without necessarily needing my decision, but also communicating with me and or others their needs so that things don't overlap, right? So we need management of the farm, but we also want people to have ownership or have a sense of responsibility that comes with ownership. See, once you own something, you tend to take care of it, right? If you have a house and it has a leak, you fix the leak, because if you don't fix the leak, it creates a bigger problem. Well, at the farm, because people don't own it, although they do identify as being, let's say, a member or somebody who's a regular at the farm, they don't treat it the way they would if it was theirs. And they don't, and in communal settings, a lot of shared responsibility falls through the cracks. Like, who's going to wash the dishes? Well, it's not my job to wash the dishes. It's not your job to wash the dishes. But at the end of the day, we're all here, you know, kind of co-creating, co-farming together. So somebody has to wash the dishes. And so we're building the systems that make that happen. And we're kind of finding ways to appoint people to have their version of their projects be under their responsibility, right? So if, let's say I'm a beekeeper and I take care of the bees and I become a producer member, meaning I'm becoming an entrepreneur running a small business within the larger business that is the co-op and the farm, then that's very clear. But there are other things that are day-to-day occurrences like cleaning the toilets or washing the dishes or buying common infrastructure or clearing up the paths, for example, doing maintenance on the farm, cutting the grass, things like that, that fall in no one person's category. Now, in an ideal world, we would have enough revenue to pay workers to take on those responsibilities, and that's part of what we're planning on doing with memberships, the dollars that come in through membership, right? a lot of that money is going to go basically hiring certain people to take on certain roles. One person to really manage everything related to the welcome desk and the bistro, what we call our bistro, which is where we can serve water, where all the glasses are found, where people can check in or purchase something, where they can buy the eggs that we sell. We want to have that responsibility be handed to someone who gets paid to work at least on a minimum on Fridays and Saturdays to kind of deal with the rush of what I call tourists and or members coming to the farm. But beyond that, there's so many other layers of responsibility and opportunity that we get to have. And as the biggest investor in the farm, from a money perspective, most of the farm is growing at the pace of our talent, the people who are there and find ownership and like just start making things, planting things, taking care of the flowers or pulling out the weeds or replanting the garlic or doing whatever it is that needs to be done. But it also runs at the pace of how much money do we have to invest in more and more common infrastructure or into getting the farm to its closer and closer state of having a communal center at the middle, kind of educational space, a place where people can gather, a place where we can host events, like I said, all those things I said, and the structure that it needs to kind of enable clear agreements between us and those who have projects that want to be executed in that way. Now, we're going through that process nicely. I think we're really headed in the right direction. I was able to invest a good amount of money to build a lot of infrastructure this year. I mean, the farm is at a blistering pace that is absolutely insane. And none of this, I really want to stress this, none of this is possible without the support of people who are showing up on a regular basis and those who are cheering us on Instagram or on Facebook or wherever else it is too, okay? So deeply appreciative of that. But every once in a while, for a common project to happen, we also need to buy the common resources. So I'll give you an example. We have to buy wood to build a structure over the kitchen so that we can have shade in the kitchen, so that we can cook in the kitchen comfortably. Well, who buys that wood, right? No one person in the normal system has the incentive of buying that wood other than maybe the chef. But then if the chef is going to buy the wood and they don't really own the wood or they don't really own the kitchen, then they're not really going to do that. And they're not going to see it as their responsibility to do that, even though they might have the resources to do it and they might really want it to happen. So what they're going to do is they're going to defer through the traditional mindset that, oh, if you're the owner, you have to pay for it. And that's great, but that grows slowly. And that basically bottlenecks decision-making processes in some cases, but more importantly, I don't want to say more importantly, equally importantly, investments in the farm being at the pace of cash flow that I get to be able to put into it. Now, the farm is not the only thing I do. I have expenses, running the studio. I have expenses hiring Kyler is behind the camera here. There's so many different layers of things that I have to invest in on a regular basis just to run my life, pay insurance on my car or whatever it is. So, and there's only so much cash flow that I can generate in any given year. Now, sure, living abundantly, I can make a ton of money and I can keep the pace of the farm growing at faster than normal. I'm doing a decent job at that, right? If I say so myself, that's a little pat on my own back over there. I'm doing a decent job at kind of keeping the pace of the farm growing at what I think to be a very good, sustainable pace. But if it were up to me, I would love to bring on investors. I would love to have other people take ownership and responsibility of projects and do that in a way that feels really clear. So we've started to do that, right? I invested in garlic, but then one of our neighbors invested in garlic, or one of my friends or one of our members invested in garlic, for example. And so now as the garlic sells, they put an initial investment, we put an initial investment, we're multiplying that garlic, and based on their initial investment, they're getting that percentage of the garlic sales. Okay, that's fairly clear. It could get messy and complicated, but that's very small. It's very minute. It's not, the biggest expense isn't the fact that we need more money for garlic, right? It's not really the thing that's slowing us down. It's more the common infrastructure, like I said, the wood, or who builds the washing station, or who upgrades the internet, and who pays the insurance. Those types of expenses are harder to divide, and they're harder to allocate to any one person or any one project, even though there might be, like I said, we're building an umbrella of projects and we're running an umbrella organization for those projects to begin with. So my pain point is that a lot of people ask me for permission to do everything. And that's normal. It's natural. It's part of how we operate in society. If you come to my house, you're going to ask me whether or not you need to keep your shoes on when you walk in or whatever it is, right? You're going to have, it's a form of respect that you're showing to the people who have come before you or to the people who are running whatever space you're walking into, that you're going to follow the rules in the same way you follow the rules if you go to a bar or a club, or whether you go to a museum. Like, there are rules, and those rules are established by the management of those places. Great. But now what, right? How can we move past that? How can I get out of the way and enable the creative genius and superpowers of other people? And the truth is that crypto, and particularly blockchain, the technology of blockchain, is a way of creating decentralized power and decentralized trust. See, here's the thing. When you're investing in a company that's run traditionally, you have to trust the management, you have to trust the team, you have to trust the vision, you have to believe in the business plan, you have to believe in the direction and the product or services they're providing, whatever it is. And you have to trust that what they're going to put in their books or how they're going to run their company is honest, right? So that you as the investor feel secure that all the money that ran through the company is actually going through the company, and you're going to get paid out the cut that you should get paid out through dividends or whatever else it is. Now, the investor is always looking to align the entrepreneurs and the owners of the business or the operators of the business in line with their needs. Meaning, if you guys get paid out, I get paid out, and everyone wins. And entrepreneurs want to fulfill that, because if they do, then they can get the next round of investment, or they can grow the company and do all the other things. Great. I think we're doing that, but we're doing that at a pace that's slow because we don't have enough revenue to really attract a ton of investment, because a farm takes time. Like, we planted 101 cherry trees last week or 2 weeks ago. And at the exact same time, planting 101 cherry trees that are this big is going to take 7 years before we get the first cherries, maybe, right? Or 6 years, or whatever amount of years. And realistically, the pace that cherries are going to pay us back is not quite worth investing in at this moment. Now, like I said in the last episode, there are other things that are worth investing in, like the value of the real estate, the value of ancillary businesses on the farm, and the people and the talent on the farm, right? So that creates the case for why people would want to become a member. But why would you want to get involved today? And then why should you trust me? Right? I'm managing the farm alongside others, but I'm clearly one of the key managers. Why should you trust me? And what if you don't trust me all of a sudden? What if you say, I want to invest, but I also want to weigh out quickly, but I also want to weigh in quickly? And the fastest way to do that in a way that is decentralized is to put all the records of who owns what in the blockchain in the form of potentially crypto, right? And a series of systems of exchange, potentially NFTs, which I'm going to get to, but also, more importantly, smart contracts. Contracts that essentially say that when this thing happens, this other thing happens. So let me explain how that scales into NFTs, and then I'll get into why I think NFTs can be linked to membership and why I think that's super important. And then I'll get into the crypto side of things and crowdfunding and those different directions. So again, our vision is to make a 150-person community. We can scale at the pace of me, the member, the core investor, and maybe a couple of other investors. We could scale at the pace of generosity in terms of donations or gifts and time, energy, resources, volunteer hours. And that's great, but that's not allowing us the vehicles of finance that traditional companies use to scale into a bigger vision. And if you've looked at any real estate development, for example, or even farm development that is scaling beyond just a small farm, they need funding and they need to make development plans, which cost a lot of money. Hire an urbanist, hire an architect, hire an engineer, hire this person, that person. But that cost relative to the value of the potential project, if we're going to build a bunch of farm homesteads and have a bunch of owners of homes that also have a backyard farm that they can farm themselves or that they can pay or participate in paying through the purchase of the land, but also through their activity or their financial contributions as members, to have that land managed, and they can share in the profits of their farm and the greater farm as a whole, right? Their land and the money made off their land or what's grown on their land, and their talent, potentially, if they're using that directly with the farm, and the money of the farm itself. Great. That sounds interesting to an investor who hears that. They're saying, yes, that's interesting. But what if I want to move? What if a life event happens and I just no longer see myself resonating with the values of this farm? Or what if I get a job offer to go out to move to Vancouver and now I want to leave the community? And I want to be able to kind of keep the integrity of the community and the memberships, but I also want to be able to sell my membership. Or I want to be able to move out of my membership and realize the value of my investments and the value of my time, energy, and money put into the farm. The ironic piece about what an NFT is, and I'm going to explain what an NFT is very quickly for those who don't understand. NFTs are known as non-fungible tokens. So I'm going to read the definition off Wikipedia. A non-fungible token is a unit of data stored on a digital ledger called a blockchain that certifies a digital asset to be unique and therefore not interchangeable. NFTs can be used to prevent items such as photos, videos, audio, and other types of digital files. They can be used to represent items such as, but the interesting thing is that they also allow access to any copy of the original file. However, it is not restricted to the buyer of the NFT. While copies of these digital items are available for anyone to obtain, aka you can download a picture on Google, but the owner of the rights of that picture can be tracked via an NFT. And on the blockchain, meaning it's validated, and what that means by tracked on the blockchain is it's validated by the fact that all the computers that are connected to the blockchain, whether that be the Bitcoin blockchain or the Ethereum blockchain, are validating that this address, aka this wallet, aka this person, owns these rights or this content or this title. Now, I say the word title because in the world of real estate, one of the things you have to acquire when you're buying land is the deed of the land, meaning you're the owner, it's under your name, registered at the city, and the governance system that we use for doing that is the city and the urbanism department at the city. Now, that's great, but that doesn't scale properly when you're trying to build an eco-village that essentially is on farmland, meaning we're not residential. For us to become residential, we would either have to rezone the land from agricultural to residential, which has a bunch of red tape and a bunch of different things. And for us to get to rezoning that, it would cost us an enormous amount of money. So therefore, we're going to be back at the problem of scaling at the pace of the owner who can make the developments and raise money and do all those things. Now, I can do that. I know people who are willing to be an investor in this, but if I have to do that, and if I take their money, or if I'm going to build an agreement with them, I also have to hand out that money to somebody who might not be the perfect fit for the community, which obviously I don't want to do and I wouldn't do, or might have a very different incentive than the people who are running the community itself because of just their wealth gap, right? Like somebody isn't more valuable just because they have more money to our community, right? The artist or the electrician is equally valuable in my eyes, as is the farmer, as is the other people in the community, because we all have a role, because it takes a village to build a village. And you'll find out very fast if the garbage man's, how fast the garbage man's value is if he or she doesn't show up, right? The second our services end, we start to see the problems that come. Like if your toilet gets clogged, all of a sudden the value of a freaking plumber skyrockets, right? So that's what I said in the last podcast. But here's the thing. What's interesting about NFTs is that not only can it attribute to a digital asset, but it can attribute to something else like membership. Now, NFTs are a craze in the world of art because it's saying, I want to be able to buy that meme, or I want to be able to buy that NBA Top Shot moment. I want to be able to buy this digital thing that I believe is going to have more value, and I'm going to speculate on that value. And I'm going to speculate based on the artist. I'm going to speculate based on its popularity. I'm going to speculate based on the fact that the money supply is growing and we're printing more money and inflation is going to go up. I'm going to speculate on 1,001 different reasons, but I'm buying it as a vehicle, one, because maybe I care about the art, but two, because I think it can make money. And the reason it's valuable is because it's inherently scarce, right? There's only one token that can represent that one thing. Only one person or one wallet or one entity can own that NFT. Now, you can buy it as a corporation and buy an NFT as a corporation, and then there's multiple entities that own that one unit, but either way, it is attributed to a single node or a single wallet on the blockchain, if that makes sense. And the blockchain is something I or anyone cannot change. Now, yes, you can take over 51% of the entire network, and that's almost literally impossible, or would cost trillions of dollars. It's unreasonable, right? You couldn't really do that, okay? So let's not talk about the security of the network as a whole. Let's focus on the value that it removes the power from me, specifically me, and or any one person in the community, and puts that into a very clear agreement that could be run as a smart contract that enables us to mint NFTs, and we can mint that by even making little art pieces or tokens or membership badges, and actually sell you, and I say sell you because that's kind of what it is, membership into our 150-person community, because we do not plan on making this physical community at Valhalla, as is today, bigger than 150 people. I talked about why that number, it's called Dunbar's number. Watch the other episode if you don't know what I'm talking about, okay? Long story short, we have an inherently scarce amount of space. There's only so many gatherings we can host. There's only so many people we can invite to have all the benefits that we're going to build. Because I can't build 1,000 saunas or 1,000 hot tubs or 1,000 garden beds. I mean, maybe we can build 1,000 garden beds given their size, but there's only a certain amount that we can host. There's only a certain amount of people and events and ideas that we can bring to the table at this farm. So inherently, we are limited by our ability to supply membership and all the benefits that memberships come with. And already we have so many people asking to be members. So what if instead of just paying for membership, like you would at a traditional service, buying a gym pass, like I said, buying a spa pass, and you only gain the benefits, but then there's no benefit for the fact that you've had loyalty. There's no benefit for the fact that you've done anything else. And what if you treated it more like season tickets? Like season tickets to the Habs hockey game or to an NFL team or whatever it is. Because season tickets, if I bought Habs or Canadians, hockey season tickets, I can buy them every year and I can probably resell them for more because there's more demand than there is supply of tickets, right? So what that means is it allows me as an owner of those seats, or at least the owner of the rights to those seats, that I can actually earn money. Now, there's rules and regulations around scalping and other things, like you're not supposed to be able to buy them, resell them, The point is it happens anyway. But what if you could do that at our farm? What if you decided that you're going to become a traditional member, pay $50 a month and join our membership as a supporter or producer, whatever it is. But then you say, you know what? I'm long-term committed to this farm. I want to see my purchasing of the shares of this farm and the shares of this co-op, because it's a legal co-op, go in as non-taxable money, because we're raising capital by selling shares. So it's not a revenue, and this is very geeky in the finance world, but it's not a revenue. It's actually a capital raise. And let's assume that we're going to sell these memberships at $1,000 each. So we have 150 spots. We pick those spots through members who then get offered to buy a share, right? So non-voting members that are just members that are gaining the benefits of membership without votes. Then we have some kind of process of choosing who we want to offer real membership to. When I say real, I mean kind of ownership to, responsibility to, and enable those people to say, I bought a share of this farm, and that share value, just like the share values on the market, like buying a share of Tesla or Walmart or whatever it is, can rise. So now, if I buy membership today, because I believe in the long-term vision of the farm, I can make a contribution right now of $1,000, buy that share, but once we hit that 150-person mark, or even if we don't hit that 150-person mark, but we're not giving out more invites at that period of time, and somebody wants in, they want to be an owner, they want to be first in line to be able to purchase a piece of the land if our project can get to that point. They want to be the first in line to build their homestead. They want to be first in line to be able to have a piece of the farm that they can invest in, or have a plot of land so they can grow their garlic or their bees or whatever it is. If they want to join that and they want to kind of have an early access to that, and our farm has so much demand, so many people who want to participate, so many people that can come, but there's only so many we can have, then the value of that membership can rise beyond that $1,000 that we sold that one share for. And it could rise to essentially an infinite amount of money based on how much people are willing to pay for it. But instead of that always having to go back to the farm and then sold back to the next person, what if we created an NFT where we create a win-win scenario both for the investor and the farm and the person coming in who wants to buy the membership from that other person. So let's assume that our farm is doing amazing, the community is thriving, everyone wants to join, and there's no more memberships to give out. All 150 spots are sold, and the only way in is if somebody else wants out. Great. Well, now the price starts to rise, and eventually it hits a target, maybe let's say $10,000, where one of the members is like, you know what? I love this farm. I really think I'm going to take my time and energy elsewhere. I'm not really using my membership benefits or whatever. I'm willing to sell at 10 grand. That makes sense. I made 10x my money. That sounds great, good to me. Let me sell you the NFT, transfer the deed and all the things that go with that deed, aka the smart contract as well. And that smart contract in and of itself can bake in that when it's resold, just like an artwork, right? So the Just Do It over there, made by Germ D, one of our members of our farm and a phenomenal artist, one of my best friends. I could sell that right now. He sold me this canvas for a price. I could sell that canvas for 10 times the price, but he won't get any benefits from it. Now, I can kick him back something as a friend, but if he sold it to a total stranger and they sold the canvas for more, he doesn't get any benefits from it. But with an NFT or a smart contract, just like NFTs being sold on art online, you can also attach a royalty that if you sell the membership in the future, you give a kickback to the original seller or the original minter of the NFT. And that minter can choose 10%, 20%, whatever it is. So let me go with simple math here and say it's 20%. So you bought it for $1,000. You sold it for $10,000. When you sell it for $10,000, 20% goes back to the farm, aka $2,000, and $8,000 goes to the person who bought the NFT or bought the membership and now got to resell it and make a profit. They claim their profit on their taxes or whatever it is. They get whatever it is. They were able to invest in the farm early because they believed in it and they found about it. Now they bought a membership. They went through the process of joining membership. It's not just purchasable. It has to be invited as well. But let's assume they qualified, they invited, boom, now they made money. So we created a win for them, a win for the farm, and a win for the person who's willing to pay $10,000 to walk in because they see the value of the membership, right? And that value is like the same value you would see in a mastermind, right? I would pay $10,000 or $25,000 to join a mastermind. Here's why. It depends who's in the mastermind. It depends what kind of business I can get out of it, or it depends what kind of growth I can find in it. It depends what the value is to me as an entrepreneur, or the value is to me as a person, no matter what the value is. So whether that's a personal growth thing or a personal growth story, or it's just an investment into a network that I know that if I pay $25,000, I'll probably go to one of their events or I'll show up at some of the online calls and that will make me more than $25,000, then it becomes a no-brainer. It becomes an investment, not an expense. See, buying a membership to a spa is an expense. It has benefits, but it's still an expense. Buying membership and ownership is an investment that can pay you back if you believe in the long-term vision of the farm. Therefore, aligning you, if you're the person who's going to buy it, and me together. And it's giving you and transferring to you a sense of responsibility, a sense of ownership, a sense of, well, actually, you know what? I am willing to invest in the wood at the farm because if the farm grows and the business of the farm grows, so does the value of membership, and so does the value of my membership, my investment. Right? And I say your investment, the person who bought it, and my investment because I'm also one of the members. So then we all are aligned to collaborate, and then we start to operate at a different speed than just the speed of one investor or the few investors that have a sense of ownership or have adopted a sense of ownership or adopted those agreements in those ways. Now, that's a very, very interesting proposal here because there is no limit to the value of this investment. And of course, our membership here is generally going to be focused on people who are in Montreal because they're going to see the most amount of benefits. But add in crypto, right? Add in the idea that NFTs are a way of us transferring information in a way that I can't change or nobody else can change. No one member can change. They enable security and allow people to invest. But it also can allow people to invest in specific projects. And it also can be found in a vehicle of our own cryptocurrency. For example, let's say we build a cryptocurrency on the Ethereum blockchain. So we create essentially a kind of our own version of a coin. Let's call it the Valhalla coin. And that Valhalla coin now enables people from around the globe on the floating market to be able to go in and out of their investment in Valhalla at any one moment. Now, the same is true for the NFT owner, right? We're not forcing you to be a member. You could sell your membership at any time, and you can sell it at whatever price you want to sell it at, realistically based on the value that other people are willing to pay for it. So if that value is $1,000, well, then you get your $1,000 back. If that value is higher, which likely it will be, or at least if you invested in the first place, you believe it will be, maybe sell it for $2,000 or $10,000 or $100,000. But crypto is not limited to 150 people. It doesn't need to be scarce. It could be scarce based on the tokenomics that we choose to use. And that's where it can get really interesting. You see, one of the biggest criticisms of Bitcoin is that the way that Bitcoin is mined is by solving complex math equations with computing power. Okay? So without getting super fucking geeky, crypto works by the power of a computer, or processor, RAM, whatever, the CPU of a computer, participating and solving with many other computers all around the globe, small pieces of massive equations that take, an enormous amount of physical energy. Like when I say energy, I mean literally power, right? Like electricity to solve. And they're mined in that way. Now, other cryptocurrencies are mined in different ways. They're created, they have different layers of scarcity. For example, Bitcoin has a maximum of 21 million, which creates an inherent scarcity, which means as long as people want to buy Bitcoins into the future and eventually we can't mine anymore, which is not that far out, then the scarcity or the value of those crypto will go up because the supply is now limited. And some of the supply is lost in hard wallets. It's stored in a vault that people can't access. They lost the password, whatever it is. So there's even a diminishing supply at some point too, right? Long story short, it's requiring an enormous amount of energy to mine and to process that Bitcoin, right? But what if we came up with tokenomics that were based on something very tangible and real, like the number of hours that people spend on the farm? So you can create a cryptocurrency where you can validate that if some people work harder than others, they can actually be rewarded, not only in cash or in the traditional ways of paying a salary, but also in crypto that is mined at the farm, but that is growing in value because the farm and the internal economy of the farm can also trade in crypto, removing the need for trading everything in cash, and therefore removing the need for taxation, essentially, in some way, shape, or form. And enabling us to create wealth out of nothing in the same way that we create wealth out of nothing that is a fruit tree. Plant a tree today. It's very little nothing. It's just a thing. It doesn't really provide value. But wait a few years and it starts making cherries or pears or plums. And now all of a sudden it's more and more valuable, and it's a value that sustains. So what if you can do that in the world of community and in the world of finance for our farm? What if we can make our Valhalla coin that enabled people to invest and speculate on the value of Valhalla from abroad, like in Boston or in New Zealand, because they believe in what we're doing? And not just from the perspective of selling the story, which we can do, right? You can pump Dogecoin to the moon. And, I have an episode of the podcast where I talk about that and whether you should invest in that or not. And I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not here to tell you what to invest in or not. I just believe that I would be willing to invest in other eco-villages that are doing it right. So why not enable people to do that too? And why not create a way where I can reward people equally based on the most democratic thing that I could think of, which is time. But not necessarily time for money, but time for reward. Meaning, hey, at our coffee shop or at our bistro, we sell garlic. Well, if you helped us for 5 hours on the farm, that should entitle you maybe to some benefits of the farm, right? And those benefits don't have to only be given to members, but they can be given to any volunteer or anybody who's showing up regularly, including members. Well, if we create tokens and we can give away those tokens because we're creating them out of nothing, right? They're validated and put onto the blockchain. They're created on the blockchain through a system of check-in, check-out. I haven't figured out all the tech, or I haven't figured out how I want to do this. And remember, I'm inventing this in this conversation. This is the first time I'm ever speaking this. But let's assume that we can create the most democratic way of earning this crypto. The most democratic way of doing that is to give it to the people who are spending the most amount of time growing the fundamental value of the farm itself to begin with. The crypto is backed by the farm, maybe in a land trust. Maybe we all become owners of the farm because we took the value of the land and made that the initial backing of this crypto. Let's assume. But even if we don't do that, the value is in the value that we believe it has. And if you spend 5 hours helping us pick the garlic or pick the weeds out of the garlic, then maybe we can reward you by giving you some free garlic or some free eggs or something else that you can exchange with other people. Maybe it's a system that people use to trade time. I'll give you 5 coins and you can use those 5 coins to buy something at the farm. Or you can use those 5 coins and sell them on the open market because there's somebody else willing to buy them at whatever price it's valued at. Let's say the coins are $1. You got $5 or 5 coins, you sold them on the open market. You could do that. Or you could store them and invest and believe that maybe they're going to go to $2 or $100, just like you believe in crypto of any other nature or kind. So you can speculate, you can liquidate, and you can leave at any one moment, which then removes the risk of why people don't want to be investors in the first place, right? Many times people do not want to invest in large community scale projects because they can't exert their control over that project. Now, that's a beautiful thing and it's a sad thing at the same time. It's beautiful because we don't want this project to be under the exertion or control of one person, because then it's a private residence and an estate. And the only main people who benefit from an estate is the people who live there or the people who own it. But if we can remove the need for this estate or ownership to be just a singular person and instead build agreements, again, that are fungible, meaning I can come in and out, but that the deeds are non-fungible, meaning I can't replicate it. I can't just invent the crypto or there's no way of me faking it in some way, shape, or form. Then you're building a real world use case and a real world economy with real world backing and assets and real world value that everyday people and anyone who is contributing in any way that the community deems as contributing or volunteering or supporting or working, whatever word you want to use, we can reward those people and we can grow the supply of those coins in a way that is the most sustainable of all time. Not only is it not going to use energy, well, we'll use some energy to validate or put the information on the blockchain, but all the work that we're doing, planting trees, taking care of essentially sequestering carbon through farming and regenerative farming, because that's what we're doing, we're literally removing the carbon footprint. And in fact, we're sequestering carbon through the creation of this crypto. So we're solving the biggest pain point of this crypto, or at least one of the biggest pain points of traditional crypto. We're validating people for volunteering, enabling more people to be interested in volunteering and having reward with that beyond just the reward that they get of meeting interesting people and learning things and all those other member benefits or non-member benefits, even if they're a tourist just showing up for a weekend or for a day or for a few hours. And it enables all of that to function as a win-win-win system. All right, ladies and gentlemen, superheroes, we had a little bit of a technical difficulty, so we're going to swoosh that right out. It's basically the iPad stops recording. This is a constant stream of thought. I really want this to... I love the idea that I'm just streaming straight. Like we never edit anything out of this. Like there's no censored element to what I'm doing or saying. But every once in a while we have a little technical, you know what I mean? Every once in a while some stuff goes down. Okay, so I'm just going to reiterate that I believe that by adopting a crypto, by allowing membership to be owned, you are creating ownership in not only the investment, but more so in the growth of the farm, where now all of a sudden somebody says, you know what, I'm willing to buy a tractor for the farm because I think it's going to accelerate the growth of the farm. I'm willing to invest more money, build a smart contract, and have in a way that I get paid back, or invest in a little piece of it, and that contract, when executed, pays me in these exact ways. Now, that's no different than making a contract traditionally. That's no different than hiring a lawyer or not hiring a lawyer, writing up a draft of a contract or a proposal, and signing it between you and the farm, right? But the vehicle upon which that is paid out, the vehicle upon which you can sell that investment, by minting it and turning it into an NFT, now says, hey, I can invest in this tractor, but I don't have to just register all of that at the normal government level. I can also register that socially at the community level, kind of essentially building a system of governance of our own. And that is solving many of the clerical type of work, bookkeeping, accounting work, and deed work and like judge and jury work through decentralized power and decentralized systems that create win-win scenarios for the planet, for the farm, and for the investor. So the farm at the center, which is the community and the base of the community, wins because it grows and it brings on more investment and more people, more talent, and more agreements that enable it to grow. The person, the individual, wins because they get to do the agreements that they want to have and bring forward the projects and the vision that they have. And the planet wins because we're doing the right thing, my version of the right thing at least, or the community's version of the right thing, through regenerative agriculture, carbon farming, all the other things that I talked about in that last episode. Right? The 5 reasons we should invest in a farm, why I believe it's financially sustainable, but also environmentally sustainable, which I didn't spend that much time talking about. Right? But that sounds complex. And I know it's complex. I mean, I've been talking about it for like 50 minutes. But the truth is that I'm setting the stage, but the idea or the concept isn't that difficult to think about. It's like privately investing in a company that isn't on the public market. But the crypto that would be made is the public market. It's the version of an IPO. It's the version of taking what a community has built or a company has built and putting that value and letting it float on the private market and enabling the people who work at that community to own shares in the same way that WestJet, a Canadian airline, for example, allows its workers to own shares. Some given through their work and dedication, some that they are allowed to purchase at a lower price point or whatever it is because they're an owner. And then the concept is that if you're an owner of the airline, you're going to do your best work to make the airline function best. And if somebody's out of alignment, right, at a normal job, well, when they're out of alignment in a normal job, people kind of tolerate that if you're not an owner because you're like, screw management or whatever, screw the boss, screw whatever. And so we tolerate inefficiencies. We tolerate that people do things in a way that doesn't really lead to the growth of the company. Because the company has some direct tie to their salary, but not so direct that they feel like, oh, well, if we throw out and waste a bunch of plastic cups on the airline, well, it doesn't really matter. It maybe affects the bottom line. It maybe affects the amount of salary or the amount of raise that I can get, but not directly. But if I'm an owner, it directly affects me as a shareholder. And at a much smaller scale than an airline, at a 150-person community, the actions of one have a deep impact to many. And that many is not that big and so not only is there societal pressure or communal pressure to do the right thing or to find integrity, let's say, within the community, but there's also financial incentive aligned with every one of those members for everyone to do their best possible job to collaborate. Now, that is a very idealistic utopian statement. There are always going to be people that are doing what they consider to be best, but might not be best for the whole, right? We are always going to suffer some level of what we call the tragedy of the commons, which is what's good for me might not be good for the greater community. But we can solve elements of the tragedy of the commons by making people co-owners. We can solve elements of competition, essentially, or a competitive mindset, or a very capitalistic-only mindset by merging capitalism with some level of communal ownership, not communism, communal ownership and communal winning. Communism is saying there's one ruling thing and party and they decide all the rules. I'm not saying that. I'm saying 150 of us can decide what those rules are and we can have all the structures for governance that we choose to adopt. I'm not talking about governance. I'm talking about the governance of agreements between the co-op and its members. I'm talking about our ability to enable people to be investors today that can appreciate and value later. And I truly believe that there is always going to be somebody willing to join this 150-person community, and that investing $1,000 today enables the community to have, let's say, $150,000 minus the minting fees of making the NFTs, let's say $25,000. So $125,000 to do what? Well, one, build common infrastructure. We can lay out exactly what we're going to spend $125,000 on. That's the point of management. That's the point of somebody like me who's a manager of the farm. We could say, hey, if you invest, this is where the money's going to go. Or this is where the percentage of the money is going to go. So your $1,000 will go 10% here, 20% there, 30% here, whatever it is. Right? And if you believe in that vision, that's when you buy a membership. If you believe in the community, you believe in the people, you see value of that beyond just the investment itself, then you're going to win through the value of the community and what you can learn, all the things you're going to go to, the events, the people you're going to meet, whatever it is. You're going to win that way, the intangible ways, but you're also going to win the tangible ways. And when I say tangible, I just mean the financial. Right? That's what I'm speaking about. And that enables that $125,000 or that $150,000 could enable us the money that we need to develop the entire roadmap of the community. Now, are we going to hit every checkpoint of that roadmap? No. But if you make a roadmap, you tend to hit it much more closely than if you don't. Hence why we have CFOs and CEOs and COOs of companies who make the roadmap of where a company is going to go, what they're going to invest in, what verticals they're going to get involved in, what kind of financial team they're going to put in place, what kind of financial structure, what they can expect in terms of revenues, what they can expect in terms of expenses, like any traditional company, right? So we're still going to run a traditional farm, a traditional company and a traditional farm and all the other things that go with it, but it enables us to have ownership or stake in that, skin in the game. When you have skin in the game, you start treating the farm and the project and the community differently. And that is what I'm looking to solve. That is the future of our farm. Now, is it going to happen through crypto and blockchain? I don't know. This is a thesis that I'm putting out there and testing because I want your feedback, right? You hear this story, you hear what we're doing here, and I want your feedback. And I want not only your feedback, the random person who's watching this on YouTube or listening to this on Spotify, but I also want the community's feedback. Where can I upgrade this idea? Maybe we use NFTs to sell parts of the land. What if people invest $50,000 now, but that becomes almost like a deposit for the future purchase of the land at a set price, or instead of a set price, a set discount? Because we don't know when they buy it. And if somebody buys it today, that set price makes sense now, but what if inflation goes out through the roof and that price doesn't make sense later because maybe we're Zimbabwe and our money goes from dollars to trillions of dollars and they're effectively the same thing. So instead of focusing on a specific price point, we can focus on a specific discount, right? If you're a member, the only way members can buy land, the only people who can buy land are members. The only way they can become members, they have to go through a membership process. I'm not talking about that right here and right now, what our membership process is, although I have ideas about it, and maybe I'll make a future podcast about it. If you maybe want to hear about that in the comments down below, let me know. And I mean that, let me know. If you engage in the comments, you hit that like button, that subscribe button, all those things, right? That's helpful. It's really helpful to us. It creates engagement and gets more people to listen, right? That being said, let me know in the comments if that's something you want to hear. But it enables us to finance the future roadmap of what we are building and creating. And that roadmap at this moment is scaling mainly at the speed of me and the speed of our talent, which is good, but not perfect. It's slower than it needs to be. And traditional companies that are non-communal and run from the top down do not necessarily... They can solve that by raising capital. They can solve that by doing a private equity round or an angel investment round or a seed round or whatever version or stage of what they're at. And so in a sense, I'm like that seed investor, that angel investor. Not only did I physically plant the seeds that were the first seeds on the farm, or at least of this chapter of the farm or this chapter of this soil, because I don't see myself as the owner of anything. I'm going to die one day is what I'm trying to say. And I don't own the earth, but I steward it. What I hope is that people can rally behind this, see the vision, give us enough space and time to create that vision, give us enough space and time to build the membership structures and all of the agreements and the tokenomics behind all of these things. And it enables anyone and everyone all around the world to speculate on adding value to our farm by buying the crypto or by buying a membership. That enables us to become a net importer of resources and a net exporter of communal values, of events, of food, of talent, of whatever our company or our organization or our farm creates. So this is innovating outside of the lines of what a normal farm does. See, a normal farm in the eyes of the government is, if you're a farm and you're a full-time farmer, you can build a house. And that's great, but we're losing that war. There are less and less people making food. There are less and less people stewarding the land. And we are selling more and more of our farmland to foreign entities and foreigners. And we're less and less connected to where our food comes from. And therefore, we're less and less connected to the shortcuts that they take in making our food, or the glyphosate that they put in our food, which maybe you want or maybe you don't want. And I'm not here to speculate what's good for you. I'm just here to say we want to do it this way. And some people believe in that. Some people want to eat all organic, non-GMO. Great, we will provide that. We will create that. But we need your help to do that. We need your resources to do that. And you need my resources to do that. We need your talent to do that. So how do we make all of those things scale, and how do we create real win-win scenarios? That is my fundamental principle in business. It's my fundamental principle as an investor, or what I would call myself a philanthropreneur. The ROI of return on investment needs to meet the ROI of ripple of impact. That's what this farm is an experiment in. And I believe that this vehicle can enable that in a way that is unlike anything else. But it has to break the norms of how traditional companies are made. And we now have the technology to do that. We now have the technology to innovate in multiple ways, whether that be machine learning or AI in the farm or in the field, whether that be solar panels and the technology of that, or efficiencies that we can find via the technology of new tools. But what about efficiencies in the technology of new governance systems or new ownership systems or new ways of interacting and creating contracts with one another? What if we innovated and thought different? What if we thought long-term? I believe investing in something like this is a worthwhile investment in time, energy, and at the minimum, it's a worthwhile experiment to me. So I think that I would love for people to feel like they can invest in pieces of the farm and potentially even invest in the smallest scales of business of the farm and get return through these different systems. Now, the biggest gaping holes in this is that I have not done the work of the tokenomics of the crypto. I have not figured out what it's going to cost us to do those things. I have not sourced who's going to code that and what system of let's say mining we're going to use, or proof of work we're going to use, or proof of stake we're going to use, right? But what I do believe is that I and others who are smarter than me can figure that out. And what I do believe is this is a fast lane to making something like this happen, and it's replicable in a way that is incredibly impactful and can lead not only to this 150-person community, but maybe Valhalla, Costa Rica, or Valhalla, Mexico, or Valhalla, Vermont. And I don't think that has to all be run by me. It doesn't have to be started by me. It doesn't have to have necessarily the same ethos as I do, or the same ethos as the Montreal farm does, but it can have some underlying principles. It could become a replicable model just like Bitcoin was, just like essentially blockchain technology was, right? How many coins are there now that all have different tokenomics and different functions and forms, some of which are shit coins and others which are amazing? And I'm not here to tell you which one is which. You or the market decides that, and that's capitalism at its finest. But capitalism right now is built on a paradigm of growth, a paradigm where we have to make more, because we are an inherently scarce game. The game that there is more debt than there is money. And that is not a system I want to continue to subscribe to. I want to find ways to build abundance for all, no matter what level you are at in the game that is our current system. And when I say level, I mean finance. And yes, people with dollars or euros might always yield power even at the farm. They will always have power if we believe in something powerfully. But if we are not willing to try and make an alternative, or if we're not willing to at least build our own microcosms and our micro ecosystems, if you want to call it that, both physically with the farm, but also communally with the agreements within the people of the farm, then we're not really trying to innovate in a way that I think is truly disruptive. The word that it first came to mind was radical, but is it a radical idea that I want to eat clean food Is it a radical idea that I want to have fresh air? Is it a radical idea that I want to live in a world where the problems of pollution aren't affecting my health or your health or my future generations' health, whether they're my kids or your kids? Can we not find a way to solve the tragedy of the commons in some way, shape, or form? I'm not saying this is a solution to everything. It's not. But I believe this might be the solution to sustainable living. Or this might create at least a vehicle that can lead to further solutions to these things. And I think it's a frame of mind that could be really, really, really deeply impactful. And so that's my vision. That's my story. That's the story I've been ruminating in my mind for over a year. It is imperfect. It has all kinds of things that I would love to upgrade. And I want to go through the thought experiment, number one, of telling the story and getting good at telling the story. That's my own personal, dharma and my role that I play in the ecosystem that is the farm. But I want to actually find and attract the talent of people who are going to give me amazing ideas for tokenomics that I can help implement with them, or even if it's not with them, that I can help bring to the community and start building upon. And I'm just a crazy motherfucker who's willing to do these crazy things, to invest my time, energy, and money into trying this stuff. And sure, there's benefits for me as a consultant. There's benefits for me testing things and learning things about building stuff online. There's benefits to me as a storyteller because I get to maybe bring my innovative ideas to some conference in Miami about Bitcoin or whatever it is, and how we're using crypto and blockchain to do real world things. And that's solving some of the most fundamental criticisms of these technologies to begin with. What is the use of blockchain, or what is the use of Bitcoin other than a store of value? Well, what if we had this as a store of value tied to real things, like real, tangible, physical things? And many cryptocurrencies are doing that, but we just get to be one that maybe attempts to do that in this way and attempts to enable voting systems that can also happen on blockchain, because blockchain can be used for voting and validating the votes. It can be used to speed up an enormous amount of processes, including bookkeeping and accounting, in a very powerful way. It can speed up lawyers and contracts. It can speed up a way that we transfer money or resources or wealth. It can be used as vehicles to support the best tax structure for transferring wealth, potentially. There's so many benefits that I literally do not have the time, energy, or smarts to tell you right here and right now. But what I know is that we get to innovate, and that I'm having fun doing it. That I'm having a great time trying to figure out how I can scale community. And I think that this first 10-year window, we're in our 9th season, and next year we're planning on building that first communal house. It's my house because I'm the legal farmer, or one of the legal farmers, and that's how the vehicle, playing the rules of the game, I'm a full-time farmer, and I can be able to build this communal house that I'm going to use as a springboard to make other things like this happen, to make essentially the exact movement that is looking to protect farmland and and promote farming, including the farmers' unions, including what we call the CPTRQ here in Quebec. I'm actually aligning myself with their goals and saying, I want to create farmers, but I know that most people can't afford to farm, or they don't have the skill set to farm, even though they want to invest in a farm. They would love to have a farm in their backyard. They would love to learn, but they need places to do that. And so the way I see it is our farm is a bridge for people getting into farming, learning about regenerative agriculture, learning about investing in farms to begin with. And that's a way that we can attract resources to these, what I consider to be one of the most important industries on the planet, because we eat every day, and it's the number one industry impacting climate change and or pollution and or deforestation. Whichever one of those you subscribe to, it's happening. We're cutting more trees than we are planting. We're polluting, putting more plastics in our oceans than there are going to be fish in 2050, according to some estimates. So I don't care if you believe in climate change or if it's some political thing. Forget it. Forget that. I don't want plastic in my food. I want trees. I don't want to cut down more forests. And we get to find ways to do that. So I'm not talking about the innovation of how we're going to do that as farmers yet in this episode, but we are doing that. We're finding ways to do regenerative agriculture, and we're finding ways to regenerate our trust with one another without putting any one person or any one party or entity at the top. So this is a top-down and also a bottom-up run community. How do we make that torus field, that magnetic transfer and exchange happen between the people who are at the bottom, quote unquote, the everyday members, including me, because I'm one of those members, only one. And yes, I have a bigger role in management just because I have more experience in doing it and because I choose to do it. Because I choose that this is one of my passions. And there are others who are going to choose that too, right? I would love to make a council of 13 or 12 where we have different people running the different vehicles of the farm. I don't want to do the accounting or bookkeeping. It's the thing I hate the most. Finance is a vehicle that I understand, but it doesn't mean I love it. Doesn't mean I want to do the work. I would love to have a CFO at the farm. I would love for people to take some of these responsibilities from me. I would love for people to pick where the fruit trees are going to go or how we're going to innovate and make more garden beds for our garlic. I would love that people would take on some of these roles. But my pain point is what I'm trying to point out here. And my pain point isn't unique to me. It's unique to owners in general of resources or assets like land specifically or like businesses specifically. So bosses many times over, sometimes, not all, but many people do want to distribute power. We just don't know how. We just haven't had the ability or resources or the innovative time or space to figure out how. And I just feel wealthy enough, not just financially, but rich enough in my being or in my soul, in my heart, to try this. So with that said, this is a speculative idea. I hope that this story fascinated you. I hope that maybe you learned something about it. I hope this got your wheels turning for maybe what the community you want to build. And please let me know in the comments if there's anything you think I said wrong, if you think I'm fucking crazy, if you think I should be innovating this way or that way. And please, for the love of God, hit that goddamn subscribe button, hit that like button, and show some love to Kyler and I, who spend so much time editing and creating these episodes. Show some love for the people who are building the community and the world that we know is possible in our hearts. That's what this is about. It's not about me. I'm just a storyteller. I'm just one of the inputs in this ecosystem, and I am honored to be that input. So see you in the next episode.